Hi Hannah, how are you?
I'm not bad, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and thanks for jumping on the Man on a Mission podcast. I've heard what you've said is you're not you haven't done that many podcasts at the moment, but you've got some booked in this week.
Yeah, I'm a newbie to this, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm just dipping my toes into it. Really, it's a new area of space for me. But I thought I needed a bit of presence. A lot of people like podcasts right now, so I'll do a few and then maybe I'll start listening to some.
Well, hopefully this will get you started, and you can listen to the other Man on a Mission podcasts as well. That might be your start point.
Good
Um,
suggestion.
so
I'll give it a go.
give it a go. We were put in touch by somebody I served with, not mentioning his names and things, but yeah. So I was like, oh, Hannah Cockcroft, I'd love to speak to Hannah. So thanks for coming on, really appreciate it. And we've just been catching up briefly there. You're in lockdown at the moment from coming back from Prague. So
I am.
what was that? A training camp out there, or?
No, I was actually filming an advert for a sponsor, so it's one of the things that's been in the pipeline for over a year, and one of those things where I knew I would have to come and sit in my house and self-isolate when I got home, but there was no way around it really. Once you've signed up to something like that, you just do it. And actually, it was an amazing experience. I've never done anything like it. Like, you have no idea what goes into filming an advert. It's probably there's more acting in it than filming a film. It was insane. So yeah, really busy week out in Prague, and obviously got to have a little look around. And I mean, they were in a lockdown out there as well, so it was absolutely dead.
Right.
But it meant that we could see all the sights, and there were no crowds, and it was amazing. So I don't know if it was worth sitting in my house for 2 weeks when I get home for, though. I'm not sure.
What are your acting skills like then? Were they quite good for it, or?
I'd say questionable. I'm not an actress. I'm definitely an athlete. I'm definitely going to stick to my day job, I think.
Can we say what you were filming for? Is that can we say
I
now?
think so. I don't know. I haven't been told. I was filming for I'm sponsored by Muller, so we were filming their new advert. So had to, funnily enough, didn't eat a single yogurt the whole time we were out there.
Oh
It's
God,
not what you'd expect for a Muller advert, is it? But there you go.
you just
Secrets behind it.
what's
Ruined
the
it.
I'm trying to think of the athlete. I don't know if she's a heptathlete or one of the girls, and I was just happened to be watching TV the other night. And I've not seen many adverts at all, and she was like, and it was a yogurt advert. So I'm presuming now that it was Muller as well.
Yeah, it probably was.
Is it Dana Ash?
Yeah, Dina Asher-Smith is sponsored by them as well. She's a 100
Yes.
meter runner, and then there's Katarina Johnson Thompson, who's the heptathlete. She's in another advert, so I'm got good company around me. We're licking these lids.
I was going to say, was that the point? You had to lick the lid, did you, and get it on the nose and all that kind of. That's what she was. Something like
We
that.
did exactly that. We did exactly that, and it is amazing how wrong you can get licking a lid. They kept just saying, "Do it how you do it at home," and I was like, "I don't think you'd want. It's not very seductive. I don't think you'd want that. I don't think that's what anyone wants to watch." So then you have to learn how to act out licking a lid. It's a very fine process.
Wow. The demands of fame and such like, but yeah. So I mean, obviously you're up there, up north as you describe it, up north, further north than me in lockdown. So I was just saying to you there that these podcasts really are around people's mental game, people's ability to, I suppose, get out of their own way, to challenge themselves, to face fears, and again, obviously, I don't know you, and we've just literally started talking. So, but again, I could see so much of that wrapped up. People are in challenging times at the moment, anyway. So, and that's really where they're driving at. So, really, chatting to you today is just to sort of understand your background, what drives you a little bit to really push at some of them amazing feats that you've done. And just as a bit of background in growing up and the background, Hannah, what was the main sort of parts of life, almost like the chapters growing up there?
So I guess you start at the beginning.
Start at the
When I was
beginning.
born, I had 2 cardiac arrests, which left me with multiple areas of brain damage, damage to my nerves, and then all that kind of culminated in deformed feet and deformed legs. So mobility problems, kind of, came out dead and whatever, upside down and blue and collapsed lungs and all sorts.
Whatever, yeah.
I came out the most messed up I could be, I think. And yeah, doctors kind of just said to my parents, don't expect that much. She's not going to live an independent life. Just make sure she's comfortable. I mean, my parents are amazing people, so they kind of took that on the chin. And I've got 2 brothers, 2 able-bodied brothers, so anything they did, I did from a young age. And they got me up and on my feet, walking around when I was 3. I can't walk far, and I use a wheelchair when I'm out and about, but I can get around the house, and it's amazing how much in this world you'd never get to see if you couldn't stand on your feet and take a few steps. It's amazing what I would have missed if I didn't have that. So wow. I'm so thankful to them now for giving me that luxury, I guess. I don't know how many people refer to walking as a luxury, but it definitely is.
Wow.
So yeah, went to mainstream school. I was always the only disabled student, and I was never bullied. I was never treated any differently to anyone else. The only place that I was treated differently was when it came to sport. Sport was, as far as I was concerned, sport was not for disabled people. We just didn't do it. And it was kind of rubbish, I didn't like that. My younger brother is very sporty, as is my dad. So I used to go and watch my dad play football and my brother play rugby, and kind of sit there and think, oh, I wish I could do that. But my parents kind of pushed me the other way. So, I sang in a choir, and I learned to play violin, and, very artsy. And it was fine. And then I guess my first taste of sport really was when I was 12. The school got the local wheelchair basketball team in to do a demo, just basically to fill a lesson. It wasn't really for me. It wasn't for anything in particular. It was literally like they were touring schools, and we were the next one on the list. And, at 12 years old, I had this whole new world opened up to me, and I realised that, actually, for the last 12 years, I could have been doing sport, and there's this thing called the Paralympics I've never heard of. And
so how did you feel being in a wheelchair and seeing those wheelchair athletes come in?
Honestly, it was the best day. I loved it, because up until that point, I hated my wheelchair. I hated wheelchairs. To me, they were just the biggest symbol of disability ever. They were a sign of what you can't do, and they were a sign of inability, and I avoided mine as much as I could. I would push myself to walk around. I'd be in loads of pain. I'd get people to carry me because I just didn't like it. I just hated my chair. And then when I saw, these guys pushing around in these sporty chairs, they were small, they were light, they were fast. I was still in an NHS clunky, heavy thing that I couldn't push myself. So it's not a surprise that I didn't like them. But they just opened my eyes up to, what a wheelchair can be, and what people can actually do when they're given the opportunity. So, meeting those guys was the beginning of the chapter for me. I think it was like, all right, okay, a wheelchair can be cool. Okay, I'll get in one.
It's like a sort of paradigm shift in what's possible, I suppose, at the time. See, what did you say to your parents when you got back that night then?
So I got back, and funnily enough, the head coach of the basketball team lived on the next street to me. I'd never seen him, literally lived 100 metres down the road, and I'd never come across him. So told my parents all about this day that I'd had, and my dad walked me around to the coach's house, and the next day I was training with the team. That was it. Just jumped straight in there.
and you got yourself one of those smaller, lighter chairs.
Yeah, so sports chairs are so expensive. For a basketball chair, you're looking at £3,000 to £4,000.
Wow.
So not money that my mum and dad had in their back pocket, that's for sure. But most clubs around the country have like a pool of chairs. So yeah, got to training. They just opened this garage and it was just chocker with chairs. It was mad, and it was literally just like, right, pick one and come play. And that was it. You're just like, it's like any team sport. You're just welcomed with open arms. You get there and they're not bothered who you are. They just want you to do sport. And that's what I did, and after that, I mean, I played for the Cardinals for 6 years. I got an offer to play for GB Women's. I just went through the whole ranks with that team. And
what did it give? What did it give you? What did it give you? Rolling up, doing onto the court in those first moments.
Oh, I was scared. I was the only girl on my team, so I was the only girl on most teams. To be fair, it's mainly a male sport, so it's pretty scary when you're only 12 and you're literally playing with men of every single age, and they don't take it easy on you because you're a little girl.
I was just going to say, it looks like it, and I've heard somebody say before, it can be quite violent. They're smashing into each other and on that court. It's a very unforgiving place. I would take it. It's
pretty brutal. They don't, they definitely don't take it easy on you. They do smash in. I mean, the rule is that you're not supposed to smash into someone, but if you can get away with it and say that you lost control of the chair, then that's what they're going to try. I just loved it because for the first time ever, disability wasn't something to hide. You could be proud of your chair, but it was also somewhere where we didn't treat each other like we were fragile people. You weren't having to be wrapped up in cotton wool. It was literally like, get out there and just enjoy it, like everyone else does when they play sport. By no means was I always wrapped up in cotton wool when I was a kid. My mum and dad let me go out and get hurt and learn my lessons, but a lot of disabled people are kind of held back to be kept safe, and that just always meant that indirectly I was held back as well, whereas you get on this court and they don't care who you are. They're gonna smash you.
So I suppose a lot of learning in being part of that then for you,
a massive learning curve,
breaking out of what you were doing up to that point.
Obviously the thing of getting into sport, first of all. I mean, I wasn't unfit, but I probably wasn't fit. So the training sessions hurt, but I enjoyed them. The whole thing of, being surrounded by disabled people for the first time in my life. I've always grown up in a very able-bodied world, so to literally see disability all around me was a massive learning curve because I only really knew myself. I only really knew what was wrong with me. And suddenly I was learning all these different disabilities of my teammates, and I guess as well, teamwork. It was something that you do a little bit at school, but you never really do it properly. And then once you're actually on that team, you're part of it, and they're gonna look after you like you're one of their own. So it was it was an amazing way to get into the sports.
Wow, pretty amazing. And so you didn't go to the Cardinals, did you say was your team?
Yeah, that was my team.
Yeah, and then, and what happened on what was the next sort of progression from there then? Because you didn't go to Great Britain or anything for basketball.
Well, through the team, I got the opportunity to try a lot of other sports. So I tried wheelchair rugby, which was even more brutal, but it was really stop-start, so I didn't like it. I wanted to have the ball and get to the other end, so I didn't do very well at that. I tried wheelchair tennis with the team. Terrible eye-hand coordination, so didn't do very well at that. I literally was just trying anything that, came up, and they were just like, oh, we're going to try this today. Do you want to go? And I just tried them all. And eventually, when I got the offer for GB Women's, I'd already found wheelchair racing by that point. So I had to make a choice of which sport I wanted to represent my country in, which, is a decision that everyone has to make at some point.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Yeah. For some of us, yeah. And so what attracted you to the racing? I take it you must have been getting really fitter and stronger all this way. And were you training quite heavily then at this point, as well as school and...
Yeah, we only trained twice a week with the Cardinals, and then we obviously had game days as well. So you were with the team maybe 3 times a week, not loads, but I was always one of the fastest on the court. So I knew that I was pretty speedy, but I wasn't very good at shooting, so no one really passed me the ball. And I tried wheelchair racing when I was 15 for the first time, and it just had a completely different feel to it. When I got in the race chair for the first time, and I mean, in basketball, you obviously get in the chair and you can go quick and, you know, you're out there doing it, but there's a wall at the end of the court. There's a ball that you have to pass to your teammates. There's still a lot of relying on other people to get the job done. Whereas when I first sat in the race chair, I really feel like that was my first experience of freedom and independence, because when you're in the race chair, you know, I know you're going in circles, but you don't ever have to stop. Yeah. There's no one there telling you to be careful, no one there telling you to slow down. I could just go and it was all me, you know, whatever happened, that was down to me, and it just sucked me in right from the start. I loved it. The first time I sat in a chair, I wasn't even sure, you know, the first time I saw the chair, I didn't want to try it because it didn't look very comfy. And then,
it doesn't. It's like you're really leant forward, aren't you, in the chair? From what I can, is that right?
So you sit on your legs and then kind of lean over your body to make yourself the most aerodynamic that you can.
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable. Even now, it's so uncomfortable. I can't explain it. It's horrible, but it makes you faster, so that's why we do it. But yeah, honestly, looking at the chair, I was like, there's no way I'm getting in that. Looks horrible. My dad, being a typical Yorkshire man, was like, we've driven all this way, you're going to get in that chair.
You're going to get in the
chair.
So
I didn't get a choice. I had to get in that chair. And yeah, that was it for me. Like, same with the basketball, really. I got in the race chair, and the following week, I was up in Gateshead with a coach, getting fitted for my own chair and starting full-time training. So... I just knew immediately it was what I wanted to do.
I was just going to say, did you have an inclination and a mindset at that point that you knew this is the path, this is what I'm going to do?
No, definitely not. I just wanted to do it for fun. Right. I've got this like inbuilt, I don't know what it is, but if someone tells me I can't do something, then I will go out of my way to do it. And I think for so long I've been told, can't do sport, Hannah, it's not for you. For so long I'd been told that now I was just like, I've got all these sports and I can try them all and I can do them all, and that was me. Like,
you're not going to tell me otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, it was literally just fun. I think, you know, when you deny a child of something for so long, they're going to do everything they can once they've got a hold of it. Do you know what I mean? And I was just trying everything, and I don't know, wheelchair racing just took me, but it wasn't like, from the start, it wasn't like, this is what I'm going to do. You know, I never had the dream of being a para-olympian or living the life that I live. When I was at school, I wanted to be in the police force, worked hard at school, but just enjoyed the sport and did it after school and in my lunch breaks, and it was just something to do.
Wow. I mean, you know, outside of the sport bit at that point, what... I'm trying to sort of get for people an understanding of the challenges and the adversity, because you said when we were saying before, being able to just take some steps in the house is a luxury. You know, the people really, and I include myself obviously, not to really understand the challenges that you face in, you know, when you were growing up there, and obviously throughout outside of the sport. So just to get a feel for that, Hannah, how do you approach life on a bigger perspective as well?
I think growing up, I never really realised that my life was different. I just thought that was what life was. So, you know, I've never got a bus on my own. Sounds ridiculous. I'm 28. I've never gone on a bus. I wouldn't even know where to start getting on a bus. Silly things like that meant that growing up, I didn't go to town with my friends. I didn't go shopping. I didn't go to cinema. Everywhere I went, I had to be dropped off and picked up. I had to have, a parent on call in case I fell over or hurt myself or whatever it might be. Up until the point of finding wheelchair racing, I was literally always stuck to an adult or always in an organised group where there was an adult present if something was wrong. And that to me was normal. I just went to after school groups. Like I said, I sang in a choir, I went to the Brownies, I was always busy and always sociable. Like I never ever felt left out or different. But it's only when, I look back now I've got a really independent life. I look back and think, at 15, probably wasn't that normal to be going to an after school club every single night. But it was the only way that I could socialise because it wasn't safe for me to, it wasn't safe for me to just go out and about and wander the streets and, parks are never accessible and things like that. So I had to go somewhere where I knew I could get around.
Yeah.
And it was never a problem. Like it's fine. But you just don't realise it until you're older. I think my parents did everything in a way that kept me protected but made me feel involved at the same time. So they did, the absolute best thing they could for me.
Yeah. And obviously your parents have been massive in all of this, haven't they? I did see a video that I was watching online of you and your dad up, him taking you out and cycling, and you're on some wet looking road in the. Do you know the one I'm on about? It's like
I know which one, yeah.
Yeah, I just thought how great it was. He's cycling behind you, and again, sort of no nonsense, and you're there training out there on the roads in the wet. He's obviously
up until moving out into my own house, Dad pretty much trained every day with me. Whether it was at the track or out on the roads, he was always there and would take me to every race and every competition. And they literally just took me where I wanted to go, where I needed to go. So, yeah, I think my family have made a lot of sacrifices for me to get where I am. Not just my parents, but like I said, I've got two brothers as well. And once I'd started racing especially, my dad always had to be like, all right, well, I'll drop my little brother off at rugby and then I'll come and take you to the race and then someone else will have to bring him home. And it was probably a logistical nightmare for them, but none of us ever missed out. So yeah, they never made us sit on the sidelines and watch, that was for sure.
So they probably didn't envisage their sister flying off to Prague doing Muller adverts.
Well, my younger brother loves it because he gets to come with me.
Oh, does he?
So yeah, a lot of the things.
Nice.
A lot of the things I take my younger brother with me too. I think.
Yeah.
I don't need a carer, but as a wheelchair user, it's quite daunting sometimes going somewhere you don't know because you don't want to get in a position where you can't help yourself.
Yeah.
And I normally can, but it does kind of, I got to Prague and it's very coupley and quite hilly, so wasn't expecting that and was very glad I took my brother with me. Otherwise exploring would have been really difficult. So yeah, they probably never imagined this for me as much as I never imagined this for me, but they do quite well at it.
What was the next phase, Hannah? So obviously then you've made your decision to go to do the racing, so you didn't have to get interrupted by catching a ball and trying to get it in the net and all that sort of stuff. So now you've chosen racing because you're your own. And what I'm taking, you can see that independence. Even just chatting to you now, that independence just shines through, I think. And I can imagine you wanting to be on the track where you're in command yourself and you're not reliant on the rest of the team. But what was taking place then? What was the next stages?
So yeah, when I started wheelchair racing, I was just sitting my GCSEs, and it got quite serious quite quick. Within a year, I was invited onto the British Paralympic team. I'd won the London Mini Marathon. I built up quite quick, and I don't know. People seem to think that after that was it. Just became a gold medalist and everything was easy, but I did get on the team quite quickly, but it was only because after Beijing, the Paralympics in 2008, the team just had a shocker. We won 1 gold medal, which is terrible. To say in London, I think we won 13, and in Rio we won 17. One is it's not an achievement. So
that was like the Olympics almost across the border, from what I remember. Though I mean, the advances in Great British Olympics, was that around the time of Tanni Grey-Thompson then?
She'd already stepped down by then. She retired in 2000, I think, in Sydney. So quite a few years after her. But yeah, they just 2008 completely shook the team up. They didn't have many female wheelchair racers coming through, so they took me on and built me up, gave me a new coach, and basically then I just sat on the team for 3 years and just trained my butt off and did my A levels, and I had a few successes along the way, like I broke my first world record in 2010, so 2 years after I'd started racing. Got to my first world championships in 2011, became double world champion, and then, but all that I just kind of think of as development. It wasn't really, it was just me learning the sport and what I had to do, and everything didn't really kick off until obviously London 2012, and well, everything's changed since then.
Yeah, I mean, that was massive, wasn't it? London 2012. I mean, what were you thinking going into? I mean, I don't know. Were you a sort of favourite for the races? What were you thinking going into 2012?
So I was probably a favourite when I eventually got there. But in the build-up, I really wasn't. I was just, they just had a big team to take, so they were taking me, and I was just a 20-year-old girl from Halifax who I don't really think anyone expected me to win. I knew if I had a good race that I could win, so I literally, I remember from 2012, I just never ever felt any pressure. I never felt nervous, not at any single stage.
Really?
Not when we arrived in the village, not when we first went out to the stadium, not when we were sat in the call room under the stands, not when I was on the start line. I never felt nervous. The whole time I was just buzzing. I was so excited that I was there. And everyone else just seemed to just be bricking it the whole time. They were always nervous. I was just like, we only get to do this once. Let's just enjoy it. And it went quite well.
What is it they think then? Because I was going to ask you, I saw as well you sat on the start line of the 200, I think it was, because you'd already won the 100 at that point. That's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw you on the start line, and immediately I was like, right, what's going through your head there? What are you saying to yourself? What are you thinking?
So the 100 and the 200 were really different. The 100, obviously, it was my first ever Paralympic race. And I was really lucky at 2012. My coach at the time was the head coach of the Paralympic team, so he was a little busy. So he brought in a games coach for me, which was a lady called Chantal Petitclerc. Chantal's a Canadian wheelchair racer. She's the most decorated Paralympian ever.
I'm just going to pause you 1 sec, Hannah.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
I realised I haven't plugged in on there, so... Fatal mistake.
Don't worry, I'm plugged in.
Just saw the red bar coming up. Sorry, Hannah, yeah. So,
Rookie mistake.
Fatal mistake. 100 metres, you sat there. I'm back.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to have Chantal Petitclerc as my games coach. She's the most decorated female Paralympian ever. She won 16 Paralympic golds or something in her career. She's mental. She's such a talented athlete. So for the 100, I remember
Is she British? Sorry, then as well.
She's Canadian.
Canadian. Right.
So my coach at the time was Canadian as well, so he brought her over. as one of his ex-athletes to kind of guide me through my first games, which was invaluable experience, really. And I remember her just saying to me, like, for my first race, my 100 meters, she said, "Oh, you know, when you get out there, you know, a lot of people are going to say to you to block out the noise, just ignore everything going on. But, you know, don't. When you get out there, just give yourself a minute to enjoy it, appreciate how far you've come, and you know, because otherwise you'll never get this experience again. So enjoy it while you're there." And then, you know, on the start line, she was like, "Whatever you do, don't smile on the start line. Because if you smile, then you've given the whole game away, and you think all your competitors will think you're really nice and that you're going to take it easy on them. Like, don't smile." So I was just going out like, okay, don't smile, don't smile. Got on the start line, and honestly, like, the noise when they said my name was, I've never heard anything like it, and I don't think I'll ever hear anything like it again. It was immense. So it's me, like, trying to be all, like, serious, but I cracked a smile. I couldn't help it. I was really trying not to smile, but couldn't not. I was just like, "That's me, hi." So yeah, I did the 100, won it.
How did that feel? What was going through your mind as you go over the line?
I want to say something really inspirational, but I didn't feel anything. I kind of just felt numb. I felt a little bit confused because going from, you know, little domestic meets at Stoke Mandeville Stadium where it's your mum and dad watching and someone else's mum and dad watching and that's about it, to being in front of 80,000 people, it's a pretty big step to take. And I probably wasn't prepared for it. So normally when we race, you do the race and you get off the track. Like, that's it, because the next race is starting. Like, they've got to get so many races in on a track day that there's no time to celebrate whatever you've just done. So I kind of just was like, right, what do I do now? I need to get off. How do I get off this track? Where am I going? What am I doing? I was just like, I didn't really take that victory lap properly because I was just thinking, like, I was panicking a bit, like, oh, right, what am I supposed to do now? I've won. Is that it? Like, I'll do that again. It's fine.
You'd imagine someone would come up and guide, you know, athletes when they've won and tell them you'd know what to do, wouldn't you? But
I think for the running races they do, because obviously on your legs you slow down a little quicker, but you know, we're travelling probably at London 2012 I was probably travelling about 15 miles an hour crossing the line, so it takes a little bit longer to slow down, so the chair obviously carries you halfway around the track anyway. But yeah, just floated around a bit and wondered what was going on, to be honest. So I didn't really milk that experience as much as I should. So the 200 was completely different. I think it was a week later, and I think I'd got a bit too big for my boots. I was a bit, I'm para-Olympic champion now, what are you? And coach rang me the morning of the 200 metre final, and he just said, "Oh, you know, I know you've trained really hard for this, but, you know, you can't go into this one expecting to win. You know, you've done really well in the 100, but this is double that now. So, you know, don't be upset if you don't win."
Yeah. And
in my head, I took that as, I'm not going to win. So I was ringing my dad like, "I'm sorry, Dad, I'm going to let you down. Don't come watch. I'm not going to win. It won't be me. Da, da, da." Like, really upset. And on the start line, all that was going through my head was like,
sorry, Hannah.
All right. On the start line, all that was going through my head was, right, I can either listen to what my coaches said, which, you know, I've never listened to anyone in my life before, so why would I start doing that now? Or I can prove him wrong, which I've done for my entire life, so why don't we just do that? And I just thought, right, I'm just going to go for it. I've beaten all these girls before. I can probably do it again if I have a really good race. And I knew to win the race, I had to hit 17 miles an hour by the time I got off the bend. I hit 17 miles an hour in like the first 70 metres, so I was well ahead. And I just remember crossing the line, and I looked up, and my coach my coach was the first person I saw in the audience, and I just looked at him and I shouted 17, and he was absolutely cracking up. He was laughing at me so much, and he rang me after the race and he was like, "I knew you could win it. I just wanted you to do it properly instead of thinking that you were going to do it easily." So after that was it. Like, it still was an odd feeling. Like I didn't feel euphoric like you would think that Olympic champions would feel, but I milked that victory lap. Like I'd watched a few people do it by that point, so I just milked it. I was out there for 2.5 hours. I missed my medal ceremony. I just waved at everyone.
You took full advantage of, or full time in doing it. I don't blame you after the first one.
I was making up for the first one that I'd messed up. But yeah, definitely milked it.
Do you think is that just, this the way that you sort of describe talking to yourself, and when people say you can't do something and you're going to go and do it, and I can relate slightly in some way, because I remember people saying that when I joined the Marines at 17, he won't stick at it, he won't do it, and again, that can be a huge motivator, can't it? When people say you can't do something, but that thing about sitting on the line and talking to you, the way that you talk to yourself, is it just always been you, Hannah? Always been a sort of positive, let's go for it, let's just...
Yeah, I think that's just how I've been brought up, never to let someone else decide what you can and can't do. I mean, I still do it now. I still talk to myself. I'm still shouting at myself in training, trying to get myself going. I just hate being told I can't do something, and I know that if it's echoing in my head, then I'll just get frustrated enough to do it. And it doesn't mean I can do everything, but I knew at London 2012 especially that I suddenly had this platform to prove to people that if anyone puts their mind to something, most of the time, they can do it. You've just got to put the work in, and you've got to believe in yourself. I think that's the most important thing. You've got to know that you can do it, and there's obviously things that I know I can't do. I can't jump, I can't run. But when it comes to pushing a wheelchair, I'm pretty good at it. I've practiced enough.
You're damn good at it. Damn good. I mean, those things you just said there is like to believe in yourself, and again, it's just inspiration. But so many people play it safe, stay in the comfort zone, tell themselves a story that they can't do, and then ultimately don't put in the work. And so building that belief is about putting in that work as well.
I've got a saying. It's funny. I saw this saying on the back of someone's t-shirt in an airport, and it stuck with me.
When was this?
Years ago. Probably like, I don't know, 2010, 2011, a long, long time ago. And it said, "Those afraid of pain will never know glory." And it just resonates with me. For what you just said, people are too afraid to step outside of their comfort zones. And the thing is, none of this would have happened if I'd just sat in my comfort zone and gone, "Oh no, that's too hard, that hurts, da-da-da." Every training session hurts, everything I do hurts. But I just see it, especially now, I'm 28, but I feel like I've got the bones of a 60-year-old. I just see it as, I've got one chance. Like, my body is not going to last as long as other people's. So if I don't do it now, I will never do it. And I think that's one of the things that I just always try and remember, like this trip to Prague that I've just come back from, for example. I really questioned whether I should go, is it safe? Should I be doing this? All the questions that are going through everyone's heads at the moment. But ultimately, if I didn't go, would I ever get the experience of being in an advert again? Maybe not. Would I ever get the chance to go to Prague again? Maybe not. You've got to see it while you can still do it. And I know that it applies to me much more than other people, because, at 60 years old, people will probably still be able to travel the world and get around easily. But more than likely, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I have to do it now. And I've got some pretty good opportunities to do it in. So might as well just do it. If it hurts, then just go to bed and I'll be right the next day.
What, I suppose, to put the other side of the coin on this slightly, and I don't know whether there is, because it's just, I'm sort of getting to see your mindset, I suppose, in hearing it. But what are the challenging times? Because at the moment, we've heard. I mean, obviously, this is daily challenges, but were there some real low points in doing this as well?
Oh, there's been some horrible points. Being an athlete is honestly one of the most cutthroat places you can ever be, I think. You don't really have any friends in athletics. I think some of my hardest times in the sport have been surrounding classification. So classification is we basically get a letter and a number that puts us in a category that means that we compete against people with a similar disability. So I race as a T34. The T stands for track athlete, and then the 34 is for athletes with cerebral palsy and brain damage, which I'm the brain damage side of it. But a lot of the girls I race against have cerebral palsy, which is essentially just brain damage with a different name. But I think because people only see the good sides of what you do. They only see you when you're out on the track winning. They don't see, the hours that you put in on the track, in the gym, out on the roads, wherever it might be. People they just don't see that side of it. And for some reason, people seem to prefer to think that you don't actually do it.
You've been an overnight success, and it's like
everyone decides to ignore those kind of 5 years leading up to 2012 before I became para-olympic champion. They don't exist for some reason. And I've fought a career full of people just saying that I'm a cheat. I'm not as disabled as I make out that I am, that I'm racing against more disabled people than myself so that I can win easily. Honestly,
how does that make you feel?
It's horrible. That is the biggest thing that I think I've had to face, and I think it's horrible because no one wants a disability. If I could give this away, I would give it all away in a heartbeat if I could walk properly. And for people to question the fact that you're pretending to be more disabled than you are, and not just Joe Blogs from down the road, actual other athletes' parents, people who understand or claim to understand disability, who were just threatened by you, feel like, oh, we'll just make out that you're not what you say you are. So to have to prove your disability to people, it's not a nice place to be, because I'm a person that has always... I don't have a disability that I can hide, obviously. It's very obvious. But in my head, I try not to make it obvious. I try and do everything I can by myself. I don't ask for help. There are things I struggle with, but I've found another way of doing it. So, for example, I can't tie shoelaces. Stupid thing, but something that people actually do every day. So I worked out another way of doing it. Can't do it the normal way, but I can do it my way. But actually, all these people that were questioning my disability, they're never going to sit and watch you tie your shoelaces. They're not going to sit and watch you write your name or, I don't know, do all these things. They're never going to do the research to understand what's actually wrong with me just because my disability doesn't have this name. It's not cerebral palsy. It's a bit broader than that. And that's been one of the biggest barriers for me, because to have to explain something that is just you. Do you know what I mean? It's like someone saying, oh, well, you're not really a blonde. Prove it that you're blonde. How would you ever do that? It's just there. It's just a part of me. I'm just getting on with it. I'm doing the best with what I've been given. It's something that still happens today, but I think I've just grown with it and learned how to deal with it, and learned that actually the people that make those comments are the people not working hard enough, the people not training hard enough, and the people that are scared to push themselves hard enough to be at the level that I'm at. I don't train to beat the girls that are like me. I train to beat the girls that are better than me, that are a lower disability. I train to beat the boys. I'll beat anyone. Put me on the track. I will push until I win. But not everyone has that mindset.
That is a mindset. I mean, it must be, really difficult to to face the challenges that you face anyway from the disability, and then and then train that hard to then, and know that you've put the time in, to know that you've spent all those hours and those early mornings and all these sort of things, and then for somebody to try and undermine that must be really difficult to manage.
I think that's definitely been the biggest kind of. That's been the only thing that's made me want to quit completely. Just doing my sport. I think just sport is supposed to be something we all enjoy. So if it makes us uncomfortable, then what's the point in carrying on? But I carried on more just to make a point, I think. I carried on to prove them wrong, and I carried on because I didn't want them to win. I didn't want them to win the race, and I didn't want them to beat me into backing down. So still going.
So is it about being the best in the world or being your best within you, Hannah?
I think it's about being my best. It's nice being the best in the world, but I mean, I hold the world records in the 100, 200, 400, 800 and 1500 meters. Wow. I broke the world record by 6 seconds in September in the 800 meters, and I still crossed the line and thought, I can go quicker. I did this wrong. I did this wrong. I don't want to
this was
leave.
What, this September just gone?
Yeah.
Wow.
We had 3 races this season. One, I was the only girl in the race. I don't know where the other ones went, but it was just me and the boys. One, I became British champion for the first time ever. I beat a girl that I've never beaten before. So that was pretty special. And then my 3rd race this season, I broke 4 world records in 4 hours. So it was a successful season, considering I've spent the majority of the year in my garage.
Wow.
But yeah, when I break a world record, I'm always looking at how to go quicker. I don't want to leave this sport knowing that I could have gone quicker. I want to go out at the absolute quickest I could have gone. So it's just like a little game in my own head.
It's really interesting because I've just been listening to a guy, and I'm reading a book at the moment called Relentless. And this guy's called Tim Grover, and he was actually he was the coach for Michael Jordan for 15 years, and he was also he was like a physical and a mental coach for Michael Jordan, but then also for Kobe Bryant and basketball world. And these extreme elite athletes would, mid sort of playoff games, charter a private jet just to come and see him to get himself in the right place. And he has these. I hope I don't forget them now. But he says that he has these like sort of categories of people. And there's like closers, there's people that close things out, but his top category is like, he calls them cleaners. But what he's basically saying is that it's almost like it's never good enough. They're always looking for that further edge. They break a world record and it's like, how can I go quicker? And that's what sprang to mind as you're saying that, really. And it's not that you probably beat up on yourself about it, because obviously it's like an amazing achievement, but that's where the difference is with people sometimes, isn't it? Where can you go quicker? How can I get better? Yeah,
I think some people are happy at settling with what they've done, and that's fine, but that's not me. I've always been one to push myself for something else, and I don't really know what I'm ever aiming for. There's never a end goal in sight. It's just, if I'm doing this, then I want to do it 100%. Like, I don't want to leave this sport thinking, if I'd done that session harder, if I'd done that better, if I'd done this, then I would have gone faster. I want to just leave absolutely everything I've got out there, and if you're going to try, then you might as well try your absolute best. And right. I don't know, I just feel like there's something in me that I can go quicker than I am. I just have to work out what's holding me back. So this year was a good step forward, and I'm just hoping there's another one next year.
back in the garage, it's working. So.
Well, yeah, obviously. I don't know why.
What was the because obviously then, I mean, I can remember 2012. I can remember looking back now and seeing you at the time and things, the braided hair and things. And it was like, so what was like that? was it fame? The bit of fame at that point, obviously, that's when you really sort of it blew up for you, really, just to come out there. So, what was it like at that point? You've won.
It was mad. It was, when we were at London 2012, we had all kind of settled on the idea that no one was really going to watch what we were doing. No one was going to care. It was just the Paralympic Games. And it's sad. It's sad that that's what's inbuilt to us, to not expect anything. But that's what we kind of thought. And then
quite the opposite,
the first day rolling out in front of 80,000 people, we were like, oh, okay, people have come to watch. That's nice. But no one will be watching on telly, so it's fine. But when you're in the village, you are in such a bubble. Like, there's no TVs, there's no newspapers, there's no internet. Like, you just shut off from the world completely. And I just stayed like that until after my 200-metre final. And then the next day, myself and Johnny Peacock, who won the men's 100-metre T44, so single leg amps, we with our accreditation, you got a massive discount in Westfield. So we were like, right, we're going shopping, we're free, we're allowed out. And like before we went, they were like, oh, you should take a security guard with you or a bodyguard or someone. We were like, don't be stupid, it'll be fine, no one will care. And we literally went in, and we went into like a newsagent's, and there was my face or Johnny's face or Dave Weir's face on the front of every single newspaper, magazine, everywhere you looked. And we were both like, oh God, what have we done? We were out for like 5 hours and we got into 5 shops. Like everywhere we went, we just got stopped, and we ended up ringing, asking for a bodyguard to come and help us get back to the village. And after that, it was literally like, that was it. We got home and there were parties and we were invited to every award ceremony, every dinner. Like, obviously I got an MBE.
I was just about to ask you about the MBE.
Yeah, I went to Buckingham Palace. I've got the Freedom of Calderdale. Like, honestly, like, I just lived the high life for months.
Wow.
And my coach could see this was happening. My coach could see that I was just lapping it up, like, yes. So he put me back into training after 2 weeks. He was like, right, that's it. You've been partying too much. You're going back in. You're working hard. And I appreciate it now. At the time I was like, that's such a killjoy. But now I look back and I think I could still be doing that today. Well, if COVID wasn't around, I literally could have gone to a different event every single day between London 2012 and now, if he hadn't have put me back on my training program and been like, look, if you don't keep working, all this will disappear. Like, it doesn't hang around for anybody. But it was at the time. It was just like, oh, I'm famous. Look at me, taking my mum to the Pride of Britain Awards and my dad to Sports Personality. It just.
What was some of those?
It was amazing. It was amazing, but you lose your bearings very easily.
What were some of those things like at the moment? Turned up to Sports Personality or getting the MBE. What was it like when you got the MBE?
The MBE was strange. I know that these answers aren't what people want to hear, but they're just honest. The MBE obviously was really, really exciting. But I remember turning up and you get put in like a queue, basically, to go and collect your MBE or your award. I got mine from Prince Charles, and I was stood next to Bombardier Ben Parkinson in the queue. He got blown up at war, and we're getting the same honour from the Queen. That's just something in my head. When that happened, I was just like, I don't deserve this. I shouldn't be here. Either I don't deserve this, or he deserves a hell of a lot more, because I didn't put my life on the line. I did something that I love. I did something that I get something out of. Ultimately, I have the most exciting and fun job ever, so I don't really know why I'm here if he's getting the same thing. So kind of really put it into perspective for me that, they're nice to have all these accolades and awards and stuff, but ultimately they don't really mean anything. It's just some letters after my name. Like the gold medal is what I went for, not the MBE. But it was such a great day. I mean, again, something that I don't just didn't milk. I didn't milk it enough. You know, everyone else talked to her in the
There's a
queue
pat-
like,
there's
oh,
a
we're off
pattern
to
here,
Ritz
Hannah.
for dinner.
There's a pattern of you putting these things down, but I get it. You know, it's just you could see even in chatting to you and seeing you here. You know, and that's part of probably what the lovely bit about you is, and also the fact that the success is just to sort of get your head down and get training again and that motivation.
I'm quite bad for. I don't really ever appreciate what I've done. Like people list it and I listen and I'm like, yeah, that's like, I can read the list out a million times of what I've done. But I don't think I've ever really sat down and considered that that's me that's done that. Because I'm a person that, right, I've finished a race, what's next? What am I doing now? People always say to me, oh, you must sleep with your gold medals on your pillow. And I'm like, no, they're not even in my house. They're at my mum and dad's. I don't look at them. I don't think about them. I don't watch the races back.
Yeah.
Just go on to the next one because there's always something better to come. And I don't think it's a good trait. I think, one day I'm gonna look back and go, oh, I wish I'd kind of appreciated more whilst I was doing it, but just too busy. I've got too much going on that I just always want to do the next thing now. I don't want to wait. I want to carry on. I think that's why this year's been really frustrating because I'm like, oh, she'll be at the Paralympics now.
You want to get in there. I mean, yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? You are kind of obviously, people sometimes talk about, well, when you're in, the SBS and it was like you get this like the film kind of thing and they think, oh, but in the day-to-day grind or the day-to-day thing, you weren't sort of like going, wow, this is amazing. But I must admit, looking back now, there's parts of me that thinks, yeah, I could have taken more out of that. There were certainly some things that really landed at the time, but you could get more. What was the and I'm aware of your time, but going forward, I'm thinking like I'm wondering if there's some pressure coming in 2016 with all this other bit. But my guess is you don't feel the pressure. But what was?
Oh, I felt the pressure massively after London. The whole game changed after London. So many girls came out of the woodwork. Just the competition just stepped up about 10 notches.
Really?
I was fine for 2013. 2014, my distance has changed. So in London, I raced the 100, 200. And then in 2014, the International Paralympic Committee announced that they were changing all the distances for the different classes. So I suddenly went from a sprinter to having to learn the 800, which was a big step.
Yeah, big difference, blimey.
So I became European champion in the 800 in 2014. My first European Championships. 2015 was a really bad year. 2015, I think everything just caught up with me. I'd taken on too much. I was training full time. I was at university full time. I was living away from home. I was living in Coventry. And I just had not even the worst year. I became a triple world champion that year. But prior to it, I lost my first ever race to, you know what, it's not even important to me, but the headlines were all that I'd lost my first ever race to a 15-year-old. I mean, when we consider the fact that at 15 years old, I hadn't even sat in a racing wheelchair and she was here beating the world and Paralympic champion, I mean, to me, I was like, we should be celebrating that. We should be, the London legacy is alive. It's well. It's proven that, she watched London and she's been given the opportunity to come and try sport at such a young age. She got in a race chair at 11 or 12, something like that, and now she can beat me. She didn't all out beat me. I had a shocking race. I just didn't race.
How did you feel? How did you feel at that defeat?
I wanted to quit. It was horrendous. People were horrible to me. I remember it was 400 meters. The 400 is my favorite distance. We'd practiced it. Me and my coach had practiced it, but we'd practiced it on a slow track and then raced it on a fast track. And I just got my tactics all wrong. Literally, that was it. It was just a tactical mistake, and I came off. And one of my best friends, actually, she turned around. She'd just beat me, but she was in a different class, so it didn't really matter. She went, "Oh, well done." I just started crying, and she was like, "Oh, what did I do? What did I say?" And I was like, "I didn't win." And she was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "I didn't win. I came third. I wasn't behind you." And she was like, "Oh, okay. Come on," like trying to get me off the track as quick as she could. And my coach just wouldn't talk to me. She just didn't say a word. And it was my friend's coach that just sat down with me, and he just said, because in a normal race meet, we will race 3 or 4 times in a day. So I still had an 800 meters to race against this girl.
The same girl?
So the same girl.
Yeah.
So my friend and her coach took me into corner, and her coach just said to me, "Right, what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to go home." And he went, "Right, if you go home, don't ever come back, because you're not an athlete that quits. And if you quit now, then we just don't want you." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "It's one defeat. Like, one defeat doesn't write a whole career. Just go out there and show them that you had a bad race and that you can correct it." So I went out and I beat her in the 8. But yeah,
that felt good. That felt good then, Hannah.
Oh, you know what? Nothing felt good after that. Nothing. We were weeks away from the World Championships. The headlines the next day absolutely tore me to pieces. And it wasn't even a big race. Had she not beaten me, no one would have even known that race had happened, because it would have had no coverage.
So what were you saying to yourself at this point then, Hannah? What was going on?
I let myself be upset for a little while about it, and then got home and just thought, right, that's it, I need to sort something out. So the next day I dropped out of uni, moved home, and I literally just worked my butt off for the next few weeks. Went to the World Championships and became triple world champion. Wow. Against that girl. I'd known for a while that I was burnt out, that I was doing too much. I didn't have the support I needed from my university to do an elite sports person career and to do a full-time degree. The support just wasn't there from any of my support network. So I just made the changes myself, and yeah, thankfully it worked.
Wow, blimey.
But yeah, not a good year.
That led you into 2016 then, and you were... And how did the pressure manifest then? Is that when you were feeling the pressure as well, 2016?
2016 was scary, really scary. I felt nervous that games. It wasn't excitement anymore. I think it was all pressure that I put on myself. I didn't want to let myself down. I knew I'd worked hard. I'd made all these changes. I'd given up my degree. I didn't want to waste that. So I kind of made myself a promise that, right, if I'm not gonna finish this degree, then I'm gonna become Paralympic champion and make it worth it. So that was just my promise going in, and I just worked my butt off for a year. It's hard, For Rio, I was training for the 100, 400 and 800 meters. They're 3 very, very different races. They're 3 very different, tactical, everything. They're just different. And I don't think you would expect anyone else to win all 3, but for some reason I had that expectation on my head. So
the expectation of yourself as well as the media and fans and so on, I suppose. We used to term it, in fact on selection, I talk about people, we termed it SIP, or self-induced pressure, and we'd be asking ourselves, is this SIP? Are we piling on more pressure to ourselves? And it was quite interesting just to see that, just to almost like see that and stand back from it and see that pressure that we were putting on ourselves. But how did you or do you handle the pressure?
I think I thrive under pressure. I think I kind of guilt trip myself more than put pressure on myself. If I feel like not doing a session, I just say to myself, well, she'll be doing that session, so why are you not doing that session? I'm just a bit of an arse to myself, to be honest.
The inner coach.
I mean, I don't even know. Like, the pressure sometimes gets too much. I had another sucky year in 2018 where, again, I just overwhelmed myself. I overworked myself and just had the worst season. And I probably should have just sat the season out. But me being me was like, nope, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna race. I'm not in shape. Not ready. Let's just go for it anyway. And I won my first international silver medal. So that was rubbish. But I don't know how I deal with pressure. I think I just tip it on its head and think, well, if I feel pressure, then it means people are supporting me, because people are actually expecting me to do well, and if people expect you to do well, then that's support, and you don't want to let these people down, so you have to work a bit harder and pull a few more strings and see what you can bring out. And it doesn't always work, you know. There seems to be a pattern that every 3 years I kind of have a bit of a stumble. I'm really hoping next year is my 3rd year. I'm really hoping next year I don't have a stumble.
Yeah, you'll break that. You'll break that pattern with that. Well, that's the learning, isn't it? I suppose you're learning and seeing it. So then you've described, I suppose, overcooking yourself, or I suppose that distracted focus into your degrees and things like that. And for anyone, even that's difficult to manage, you know. But I mean, what about the pressure when you're on the line at Rio, and the nerves and?
Once you're on the line, you can't do anything. So I don't really feel the pressure, because I just think, well, I've done everything I can up until this point. So what's the point in being scared and nervous? Just get on with it.
Yeah.
It's too late by that point, really. So, 100, I think, I was kind of nervous for the 100, but just kind of just put it into perspective and thought, right, okay, let's just go. The 4, I still love the 4. The 4 is my favourite event, so I just enjoyed the 400 out in Rio. The 800 was the hard one in Rio. It was a tough day anyway. I lost my best friend in 2015 as well. Really bad year, I told you. Wow. I lost my best friend in 2015 to cystic fibrosis. And my 800 in Rio was on her 21st birthday. So I woke up and I had all these messages off her family and all my friends saying like, oh, you know, go and do it for Talia, do her proud, you know, she'll be watching. And it was, emotional. Hard, because in a way, like, I completely blocked it out, to be fair. Like, I read those and I was like, right, okay, great, thanks, no pressure. But then just kind of forgot it, and I feel a little bit guilty, the fact that I just forgot about her. But I knew I had a job to do, so I just prepared like I would any other race. Sat on the start line, and I didn't feel pressure there because I had a decision to make. So in the 800, you can either... So in the 800, everyone can sit behind each other. It's called drafting. And in drafting, the person at the front is working 30% harder than anyone behind them, because the person at the front is pushing into the wind. You know, they've got to deal with all the aerodynamics and stuff. I always get pushed to the front. I hate pushing at the front, but no one else will go to the front. So I had to make a decision in Rio, and I'd ummed and ahed about it. I'd talked to my coach about it a million times. I got to the start line of the 8 and I still hadn't decided what I was going to do. Was I going to, you know, sprint from the gun and just accept that I would end up pulling the race? Or was I going to ease off a little bit and see if any of the other girls went to the front of the race, to give myself a bit of an easy ride? It was the last race of the games. You know, I wanted to win it. I wanted to get all 3. And you know what? The gun went and I still hadn't made a decision. So I went. I sprinted from the gun.
You're just trusting yourself at that point, I suppose, really, aren't you? Trusting yourself
the whole way around, I was just changing my mind. I sprinted from the gun. I was like, yeah, right, got one chance. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to go. We got to the brake line, which is where everyone starts going in behind each other. And I sat up and I was like, no, I'm slowing down. I don't want to be at the front. And then I just thought, like, what am I doing? Like, I've trained it. I've done it 100 times. Let's just go. So I just just went. I just trusted my arms and didn't really think about anything that was going on, and I just pushed. And 800 is such a long way.
That
I
is,
don't know why
yeah.
I'd do that race. But yeah, like the whole race I was umming and ahhing, and I kind of realised about 200 metres into the race, I looked up and I saw the screens like in the stadium,
Yeah.
and I realised that I could use them to my advantage. So I sprinted, and then I gave myself a bit of a rest, and then when I saw the girls catching up, I sprint again and give myself a bit of a rest when I'd created a gap. And I just kept doing that, kept looking at the screens to check where the other girls were. And it's funny, like I obviously didn't notice on the day because I was racing, but about 200 metres from the end, the Australian was coming second the whole race. About 200 metres to go, you see her sit up and swear at me because she can't catch me, and then she gives up. She stops pushing completely. 200 metres to go,
Wow.
and the other Briton and the American overtake her, and she didn't medal because she just gave up. It's quite funny to watch.
I suppose she's got to live with that moment, that kind of like, yeah, I was going to say hissy fit moment because she can't catch you, but yeah,
I just played the game, and yeah, she didn't deal with it very well, but it's quite funny to watch.
What drives you now, Hannah? I mean, so many accolades and so much that you've done, and then you've just gone and broke a world record, a few weeks ago again. So what's driving you now?
I think what's driving me at the moment is fear. I went into this season having no idea where I was. Obviously, we hadn't been able to go on the track to practice. All my training had been upside down. I had no idea, time-wise, where I was going into any of the races this year. So I think that's what drove me. I just was just like, oh, I don't want anyone to beat me. I don't want anyone to have trained harder than me in lockdown, because I've trained pretty hard. And I think now what drives me is still fear. It's a mixture of fear and just the absolute, I just want to win. I don't want anything else, but I just want to win. And
what is the fear?
The fear now is I've shown my true colours. I've gone under those 4 world records. Can I go any quicker? Have I shown everyone what I can do too soon? Have I pulled out my aces too soon? What can I do this winter to make me quicker next year? I think it's literally just having no way of really calculating where I'm at. Normally I'll compare myself to the other girls when we're out on the track, in training or whatever it might be. I know where I am and I know where I should be, and I know if I'm having a good session, a bad session, whatever it might be. But this year has been so different, and I think next year is going to be really different as well. This year it was planned. I spent 2 months out in Australia at the beginning of the year. We were going to come back for 2 weeks, go to Tokyo for 2 weeks, come back for 2 weeks, go to Spain for 3 weeks, come back, and then our season started. So Switzerland, a few races in Britain, maybe a race in America, come back, go back to Tokyo. That's now the plan for next year. But I know that the reality of that happening is pretty slim, actually. So even though this year's gone really, really well, can I keep motivating myself? Can I, have I shown everyone what I've been doing too soon so they can all copy me? I think because there's so many questions that no one can answer at the moment, it's a scary place to be. So, but it's good because it pushes you in every training session. I do that extra pull-up because I think, well, that might be the difference between winning and not. I do that extra session because I think, well, if I don't do this, then maybe I won't win that gold. So I think you've always got to be scared that you might lose what you've got. Otherwise, you won't work at your hardest if you think that it's just going to stay there forever. And I've had too much experience of the fact that it doesn't just hang around if you don't work for it. So
I mean, at that level, the fear driving, it's interesting again, I'm thinking of that Tim Grover guy was talking about a dark side that we and I think there's no like, but what is the dark side for some people, and tapping into that darker side sometimes. I don't know whether you ever, if that resonates with you, but sometimes almost I talk with people about an aggressive goal focused mindset sometimes, rather than a passive negative mindset. And so how do you tap into that darker side to push that bit further to win, I suppose? Is that something have you ever thought of that, or is that something that makes any sense?
I probably have thought of it, not in exactly the same way. I do quite often realise that the way I look at things is maybe not the healthiest way to look at things. But then I just figure everyone has their own ways of dealing with stuff, and if that's what drives me, then it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think up until this year, I was quite a negative person. I was always the one that...
Really?
Oh, yeah, I'm not... I know I'm always sunshine and rainbows when I speak to people, but in my head, I'm not that positive. I'm always the one going, why do I have to work this hard? Everyone else gets it easy. Why me? Da-da-da. And I think just this year has put everything into context. Like, it's been a very, very strange, but quite an easy year. And it's been nice to just have time to rest and relax and realise what's important. And I think this year's just allowed me to learn how to put a positive spin on everything. It's been a very negative year for everyone. Obviously, my Paralympics got postponed, my whole season disappeared. But I used that time to work on my technique, work on things that normally get brushed under the rug because there's no time to perfect it. I've learned how to push on a new set of gloves that I've wanted to try and learn how to push on for the last 5 or 6 years. I've had time to do that now.
Yeah.
I think I've learned to just put a positive spin on everything, and then nothing seems that bad. But I've got to carry it into next year now, so we'll see.
You see, it's funny. My mentor talks about, and he took some people to the Olympics in 2016 as well, and he talks about people turning up there, and he was on about one of the I forget her name now. She was in the diving competition, and she kind of got there, and she just wanted to go home, and she almost didn't want to be there. But he said his mentor had basically said, you're going to be dealing with people normal doubts and fears, and I think it's interesting for people to hear you say at the end of it, because the positivity kind of reigns through, but then at the same time you say the negative thinking, the normal doubts and fears that we have, and the ability to push through those, because that's something obviously clearly you've done to win all those things that you've been mentioning in this conversation over and over, the pressures that have perhaps built on you. But that ability to turn into and face those fears. I almost call it like the warrior spirit, but those normal doubts and fears are human. They're for everybody, aren't they? And so it's about how you handle them, how you push into them.
Yeah, everyone's got, fears. Everyone's worried about something all the time, probably. It's just how you see them and how you deal with them. And I mean, I always just try and think to myself, you know what? I know I'm worried about losing this race, but ultimately, no one cares. No one really cares. Like, I care. Yeah. My mum and dad care, but if I lost this race, it's not the end of the world. Whereas, some decisions that people have to make, or some things that people have to do, could be the end of the world. It could be a massive, massive thing. So I think you just have to sometimes put your fears into context, and it doesn't make them any less scary. It doesn't make them any less valid. Yeah. But I think you just realise that you're one very small cog in a very big machine, and ultimately my job is just to make people smile. Just got to let people enjoy my sport and watch what I do, and that's it. That's my job. It's a pretty easy job, ultimately.
I'm not just saying it, but obviously we've just met today, but you're a pleasure to talk to, Hannah, and even from the time then, you do make people smile, and I think I think it's obviously wonderful what you do, and I'm again just take my hat off to you for the amount of effort and time that you've put in and facing the adversity that you do, because it is inspiration. Like you said, there's it might be that 15-year-old girl that beat you at the time, but but you soon came back and won the race again. But just such a legacy, I suppose, of inspiring those girls and those other athletes to push on and be themselves and be their best is an amazing. And maybe you don't see that totally at the minute, but I think that maybe there's a legacy. I don't know if you think about that at all.
I never used to. I never really wanted to inspire anyone. I was just out there doing what I do, and in a lot of ways I still am. I do this because I love it, and the minute I stop loving what I do, I'll stop. That's it, because sport's not worth it if you don't love it. But the more people I meet, the more, especially girls, that I bring into the sport, I kind of feel responsible. I've got a platform that they may never have because I went to London 2012. So I want to create opportunities for them. I want to, make sure that when I'm not in this sport anymore, there's still races for them happening. There's still coverage for them. All those things are still improving, and they've got a long way to go. But I want to, give it my own little push. So yeah, in a way, I feel a little bit responsible. But at the same time, then when someone comes and beats me, I kick myself for inspiring them to come into the sport. So it's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
How dare you? I was only inspiring you for a bit.
Yeah, I'll inspire you now, but don't come and
don't come and try and take my race. Yeah, yeah. Anything else that you would say to listeners, Hannah? I mean, we've covered a lot of ground. I'm aware of your time, so. Anything else you would say to people? I'm presuming you're going to be inundated with people wanting speaking engagements throughout your life and onwards, yeah. But anything that springs to mind?
Hey, I hope people want to hear my story of my whole life. That'd be great.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, I the message I always want to leave people on is just take every opportunity you get. I've only got as far as I have because I've said yes to everything, and you're not always going to love the experience that you get out of that opportunity, but if you don't love it, you'll learn from it. And life's about learning, so don't go to bed having regrets thinking, I should have said yes to that. Just do it. I've said no to too many things, and I've just got to a point now where you just say yes, and normally 9 times out of 10 it works out okay.
It's a good ratio, yeah. But I think for everyone, we wish you all the best hopefully the season's not as broken up next year, and you actually get the Olympics and you get to do all the training places that you want to go to, and it works out, hopefully. But yeah, it's just been amazing to chat to you, Hannah, really has, and I thank you for your time, and
no problem.
And all the best for everything that you do. And I'm going to be certainly keeping an eye on what's going on in the races, and and shouting from it. But what about people following you? What's the best ways of are you on Instagram and things like that, or social media?
Yeah, I'm out there. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I've got a website, hannahcockcroft.com. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed what I've had to say and get in touch. But ultimately, let's just hope next year's not that 3-year slump.
Yeah. Hopefully not. Fingers crossed. But we'll keep training and going and all the rest of it. But yeah, amazing. And Hannah, thanks for your time, and your last bit of lockdown, and then you'll get some freedom.
Oh, I can't wait, honestly.
Take care, Hannah.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.
Bye.